Hi boys and girls, happy Earth Day. In honor of Earth Day, I am wearing my Plant These, Save the Bees t-shirt. And I hope that you are enjoying this super nice weather that we have today. The last time that we were at the Parker Inheritance, we got to know what happened at the secret tennis game. And at the end of it, we were kind of hearing about some arguments that were going on between Coach Dub and the Wallace team and the Allens. So I think we might be about to find out how the Washingtons got run out of Lambert. So I'm going to start back up again, and we are at present day, and Candace and Brandon are on their way to the Juneteenth festival. Miss Stanford clearly wasn't getting the hint. There are a lot of factors that could have led to someone passing away, she said. My best friend's father has Alzheimer's. It's such a dreadful disease, and it causes him to act so strangely. She smiled wide enough to eclipse the sun. I'm sorry for prying. It's just, the more we know about our loved one's health, the more we know about our health. Yes, well, thank you so much for your concern. Candace's mother looked at her watch. We're about to head to the Juneteenth festival. Perhaps we'll see you there? I heard it was boring, Milo said, frowning. Nothing but a bunch of stories about how we used to be slaves. Miss Stanford quickly patted Milo's shoulder. Oh, you know these boys. They don't appreciate cultural education. We've hoped to attend every year, but we've always had a conflict. She leaned closer. Although, out of all the places to hold it, why would they choose Vickers Park? It's just not safe. I hadn't heard about any crime in the park, Brandon's mother said. Has something happened there recently? Perhaps not at the park itself, Miss Stanford clarified. But you know, that neighborhood, it just... Isn't Vista Heights the oldest African-American neighborhood in Lambert? Candace's mom asked. It seems like the perfect place to hold a celebration of our freedom. Oh, yes, perhaps. If you put it like that, Miss Stanford looked at her own watch. I should let you all go. Feel free to call if you need anything. Juanita has my number. She smiled at Candace. Same for you. Maybe we should have you over for a play date? I'm sure you're just as into many of those dreadful video games as the rest of the kids. She and Milo walked back to their SUV. I will never speak to you again if you go to Milo's house for a play date, Brandon deadpanned to Candace. But what about all those dreadful video games, she asked. And how else is his mom supposed to spy on us if I don't talk to her? Don't be so snarky, Candace's mother said. We hardly know them. I'm sure Milo is quite nice. He's not, Candace said. Nope, Brandon agreed. They're right, Tori said, still rubbing her arm where her mother had pinched her. We've known Milo since we moved here. He's as rotten as they come. I'm guessing pretty much everyone in the neighborhood knows that. Everyone except for his mother, Miss Jones said. But what I can say, people see what they want to see, especially about people they love. She leaned over and pecked Tori on the cheek. It's the fallacy of mothers, she sighed, and wives. Candace turned to watch Miss Stanford drive off. It seemed rude to be looking at Brandon's mom right then, when she felt sure Miss Jones was really talking about someone else. But at least you two don't have to worry about Millie for much longer, Miss Jones continued, filling the silence. Candace turned back around. Why do you say that? Miss Jones' mouth gaped open. She looked at Candace's mother. Did I? Oh, gosh, I ruined the surprise, didn't I? It wasn't a surprise, Candace's mother said, her words measured. I just wasn't sure until last night. She glanced at Brandon. Maybe we can talk about it later. You sold the house, didn't you? Candace asked. She crossed her arms. No, it's not that, her mother said. Then she sighed. Might as well tell it. The house is still on the market, but your father's friend completed all the major renovations and brought in a new crew for the finishing touches. The realtor thinks that she can sell the house even if we're living in it. She took a deep breath. We can head back to Atlanta as early as next weekend. Candace blinked. That soon? I know the idea of moving has been really hard on you, her mother continued. I know how much you miss your father and how much he misses you. Now you'll have a chance to hang out with Dee Dee and Courtney a little before school starts. Isn't that great? Candace nodded. Yeah, I guess. She looked at Brandon. She couldn't see his face. He was staring at the ground, his hands tight around his backpack straps. Would he be searching for Parker's fortune without her if they didn't find it before she left? Would he still share it with her? And once she did leave, who would play basketball with him in the backyard? Who would he trade books with? Who would she trade books with? Tori wrapped her arm around her brother's neck. Hey, I left something upstairs. Walk with me, okay? He nodded quickly, still looking down, and let his sister lead him inside. Candace wanted to follow them so badly. She wanted to say something to Brandon. Anything. But she didn't know what. And then he was gone. Chapter 33. Chip Douglas. August 11th, 1957. For the next few hours after the tennis game, everything was calm and back to normal in Lambert, South Carolina. Then Chip's world exploded. The ringing phone cut through the house, jarring him awake. He switched on his lamp and glanced at the clock. 1 a.m. After pulling on a t-shirt, he entered the hallway. His father leaned against a door jamb in the living room. The phone cradled in his shoulder. His eyes were closed, and his breaths were deep. A few steps away, Chip's mother stood in her nightgown, her hands fiddling with a dish towel. Adam mumbled a few things into the phone. How bad is he hurt? Is everyone else okay? The boys? What about the car? Finally, he sighed. Sit tight, we'll be there in a bit. He hung up the phone. That was Dwayne Smith. Dub was attacked tonight. They ambushed him as he was leaving the Green Olive Bar. Smitty found Dub in the parking lot and got him back home. He grabbed his wife's pack of cigarettes from the table and started searching for a lighter. Chip hadn't seen his father smoke a cigarette in years. Put on some clothes, Chip. You're coming with me. His mother dropped the towel. What? He's just a baby. He'll be fine, Joyce. Adam finally found a lighter. He took a long puff of his cigarette before slowly blowing out the smoke. Go on, Chip, and pack a bag. Enough clothes for a day or two. His father walked off to his own bedroom with Chip's mother a few steps behind, still asking questions. Chip hurriedly got dressed, then tossed some clothes into a duffel bag. He didn't have much cash on him, but he took the few bills he had and stuffed them into his pocket. His father knocked on the door. You ready? Chip looked around the room. Yeah, I guess. He followed his father outside into the Buick. Is everything okay? Is Siobhan okay? She's fine. They're all fine for the most part, but Dub took a real bad beating. Smitty's convinced that the men who attacked him are coming back, and that'll be a lot worse next time. Why? His father didn't immediately speak. Finally, he said, You want to help the Negro race? Here's your chance. A small crowd had gathered at the Washingtons' house by the time they arrived. Men wore bathrobes, and women stood with their hair hidden underneath their scarves. A few people carried guns. Chip recognized a few faces in the yard. The crowd parted and let him and his father pass into the house. Chip gasped upon seeing Dub. The man was slumped over in a recliner, his left arm in a sling. A white towel, wet with blood, had been wrapped around his head. Dub's jaw was swollen, his nose was clearly broken, and his face was covered with scrapes and cuts. As Dub breathed through his mouth, Chip could see that his front 2 teeth were missing as well. Chip had seen pictures of black men who had been attacked by white men, but he'd never seen it up close. As he looked at Dub, Chip was afraid he was going to throw up. Smitty, you said it was bad, but this? Adam Douglas ran his hand over his head. We gotta get him to the hospital. Now. No, Dub wailed. He shifted in his seat, just long enough to look at Chip and his father. Dub's eyes were glassy and distant. He won't go, Smitty said. That's why I called my friend Betty. She patched him up as best as she could, then shot him full of morphine. But she said he'll need a proper exam once he reaches Maryland. Chip tried to keep up with the conversation. Maryland? I think it was the Allen boys. Smitty shrugged. I can't really be sure of anything, but they'd be my first guess. All I saw was 3 people in masks running away, while Dub laid on the ground, choking on his own blood. Adam kneeled in front of Dub. Look, let me take you to the hospital, he said. I can protect you. The Allens can't get you there. Dub shook his head, then pointed to Smitty and mumbled something. Chip had no idea what Coach Dub was saying, but clearly Smitty did. He walked to the couch and pulled something out of a small paper bag. I found this doll in his car. Chip stepped forward to get a better look. The baby doll's white skin had been painted the color of midnight, with thick cherry red lipstick smeared over its small mouth. Horrible words were scratched into its plastic skin. Why did they leave a doll? Chip asked, his stomach twisting. What does it mean? His father cleared his throat. It's a girl, a black girl. Who do you think it's supposed to be? Suddenly, Chip connected the pieces of the puzzle. Then he ran to the wastebasket and threw up. You okay? His father asked. Chip wiped his mouth on his t-shirt. He stared at the wall. He couldn't stand to look at the doll anymore. It's meant to be me, isn't it? He turned to see Siobhan standing in the doorway. No one spoke for a few moments. Then Dub began to sob, his tears mixing with the blood and the dirt on his face. His shoulders shook and his body crumpled into the chair. You should go back to your room, Adam Douglas said. You don't want to see your daddy like this. Siobhan didn't budge. What about the other boys? She asked. What about Reggie? Is he safe? Smitty rubbed the back of his neck. Now don't you go worrying about... Mr. Smith, please, Siobhan said. They'd be just as mad at him as they were with Daddy. Smitty, Adam Douglas began. Dwayne Smith sighed. Just before they sped off, I heard one of them yell that they were going after the half-bred kid next. I'm assuming they were talking about Reggie. He held up his hands. But I already told Robert. He's on his way to his grandma's house. Reggie's not there, Siobhan said. He cleans up at the High Horse juke joint sometimes. She started toward the door. If we hurry, we can make it. And I'm going to stop right there. So, do you think that this was what Adam Douglas meant when he said he was worried that they were going to win the game? Anyways, I hope that you enjoy your Earth Day and spend a lot of time outside in the nice weather, and we will read again tomorrow.